Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Ryan Choate, and on behalf of Caresoft Technology, I would like to welcome you all to our Software AG webinar, How Agencies Are Unlocking Legacy Data and Leveraging the Data Cloud. And with that, I'd like to turn it over to our first presenter of the day, Mr. Eric Wood.
Thank you very much, Ryan, and welcome everyone to this presentation. As Ryan states, my name is Eric Wood, and I'm a Principal Systems Engineer with Software AG Government Solution. In this presentation today, I will talk about how Software AG's data integration solution can assist government agencies with the tools to extract, view, and move their legacy data from the mainframe and other legacy platforms to the data cloud that has been locked in data silos for decades. Getting started first, Software AG has been rated one of the top software vendors that provide data to the cloud by a lot of the major software analysts. With our own complete integrated platform as a service, our cloud portfolio, our PaaS, we provide application and API management integration with our web method suite of products, our device IoT integration with our Cumulocity product suite, business process with our Eris product suite. And what we're going to talk about today is our data integration with our StreamSets product suite. After viewing a recent survey by IBM's Institute for Business Value, the mainframe still remains unmatched in transaction performance, reliability, as well as security. And that is the reason why 71% of executives say that their mainframe applications are still the central platform for their business strategy. And with this adoption to the cloud within the last 7 years, it has actually doubled. And 60% of these organizations' operational data are now residing in these cloud platforms, which is actually surprising for me that enterprises and organizations are preferring two times over the amount of having the data stored in the cloud because of the security measures that have been implemented that are continuously being advanced and worked on. So with this data movement to the cloud, this will allow data analysts and data scientists to ingest this information from the mainframe into data lakes and analytical platforms like a Snowflake to provide the following. Things like early fraud detection, providing a better citizen experience through a customer portal so they can get a more holistic view of their own data without having to go into those agencies and also having to call to try to get someone to make these changes and sit on the phone for a while. So by having this data in a portal, they have more control of information that they need to see at that particular time. As well as this also helps businesses for business optimization, which would improve the efficiency, the productivity, and the performance of an organization. And last but not least, we're talking about the GRC reporting and insights on that. This is for the decision makers. This will be a centralized repository that will allow them to report on various regulations, laws, and make sure that they are in compliance with that. And being the government, how things often change, you want to make sure that you are in compliance with those, as well as looking at security, financial status, and just the stability overall of the entire enterprise. So why is this data so important? Why is this enterprise data so important? It's very important because it's been, like I said, in these silos for the last 10 years, and it's the central of your business, but it remains a challenge of how you get to this data. Within the last few years, these SaaS applications have been used by organizations, and getting this SaaS information from these applications are pretty straightforward and pretty easy because of the data analysts now can use the adapters and the connectors that are provided by these SaaS vendors to they already have a direct access to snowflakes and the likes. So it's easy getting this data. But you know what happens? That set the tone for all the rest of us because the organization says, well, if it's that fast with this data, why can this operational data be just as fast? But it's not just that easy. Once you cross that firewall, there are other things that you have to take into place. So these data engineers are given the task to try to get access to this data that is stored in other systems that is across that firewall. You got to look at other security measurements, other governance that take place. There are also complexities and diversities in APIs that have been written for over decades, as well as data could be in various message queues, and they have to know how this data works. And if something breaks, they have to repeat this and try to fix this problem. But it's even more unique on the mainframe. As you all know, the mainframe has its own uniqueness. For an example, data on the mainframe can be stored in many different formats. You have your different data stores that the data resides in. And then within those applications, that data is mostly always, the applications are customized for those organizations, for those departments. And within those applications, that the data itself fits those applications. So the data is molded and shaped for those applications. And then you have the presentation and presentation layer. Although you're looking at the screen, it doesn't tell you how the data is actually stored. So it's very, it is very not helpful looking at the data on the screen because it may not be the way that it's stored on that mainframe. And then, of course, the data is stored in EBCDIC format. So in open systems, that data needs to be translated to ASCII. So what are some of the current approaches that organizations are taking? And most of us, my colleagues that I've talked to, they said they fit into one of these three categories. Either I do nothing, or I write custom code, or I use some tools that I already have for point-to-point integration. And most often it's to do nothing because they feel that it's too hard to get access to the data. I have limited resources that can work on this based on the request that is coming from the data analyst. And then I feel kind of nervous about, they feel kind of nervous about where the data is residing. And then with the custom code, it's not scalable. And if something breaks, then I have to manage and redo these particular pipelines. And of course, like I mentioned earlier, it requires additional governance and security to get access to this data. So this is where Software AG and our data integration solution will help easily move your data in 3 easy steps from your legacy application, again, in these building a data dictionary, as well as building and configuring pipelines to move the data in 3 easy steps. And what I'm going to do, and I'm going to talk about these 3 easy steps next. So for this first step of liberating your data, what we talk about is your data can reside on any of these platforms you see at the bottom here. It can reside on the mainframe in DB2, vSAM, database, IMS, IDBS, you name it. We have over 150 plus database connectors that will allow you to get access to this data, whatever platform you're on. So it can be on AS400, OpenVMS, and any other legacy Unix and Windows environment. We have connectors or adapters that will allow you to connect to those repositories. Now, within the connection, we do all the heavy lifting for you. We do all the formatting from ASCII to EBCDIC, from EBCDIC to ASCII, I'm sorry, and back forth if you are moving data back to those to the mainframe application, as well as we keep track of all of the layouts and the field definitions, all that information is kept in something called a data dictionary that we build when we connect to these backend systems. And then for security, we maintain and we respect the security from the platform that it's come from. So on the mainframe, we handle RECF, ACF2, we manage all that stuff that you currently have built into your application. And then on top of that, within our data dictionary, we put another layer, about 7 different layers on that data so that we can get access on role-based, user-based, group-based, even down to the columns of what individuals can see. On top of that, the content of the field. So all that information is continuously and secured in this environment. Now, after we build that data dictionary, we give this information over to the data analysts and the data scientists. This way they can start viewing the data and exploring the data using standard SQL. And they can look at the data. We can also, with this tool, we can data virtualize. So we can pull data from multiple data sources and to see if this is the information that I need to have over into for me to start my analytical or my data lake project. And by doing this, I don't have to keep going back to the mainframe group because now I have all the data and all the data set that I asked the data engineer to provide for me. Now I can look at the data and slice and dice the data how I want it. And then once I'm satisfied with that information, then I will have that data move to my, my cloud platform. So the third step is building the pipeline. By building the pipeline, this solution again is a wizard-driven app platform. It's a low-code platform, so that it's easy to build these pipelines. We're using, and we also provide you 70+ predefined processes that already have built-in features and functionality within the tool. So I can do things like data masking, I can do data formatting, I can do preparing the data for ETL so that it be ready, analytically ready when I move it to my Snowflake environment. So this data can also be managed and monitored in something called the control hub. So the control hub says, I'll allow you to build the operational pipeline, and I can also monitor and watch the data being moved to Snowflake as a mechanism so that I can tell everything is moving fine, how much data is moving across, do I need to scale up, what I need to do. All this information is kept there in that control plane. Now, this is just the platform, so you can visualize building the pipeline. It's very visual, it's very descriptive, and you can actually see the flow of how the data is moving from the source to the target. Right, so you see your mainframe collector there, and then you have different steps where you want to look at the data and process the data. You can do lookups, you can do transformations. These will all be documented in these different points within the product. And again, this is reusable. Reusable because we all do it. If someone builds it once, why do I have to build again? I can use certain parts of this, so this will help with efficiency and help me to quickly build a pipeline so I can get that data into my Snowflake platform very quickly and very easily. And you know what else is in it, in our product, in our secret sauce? We have something that will say what normally happens in IT, what happens at things change. And when things change, things break. But within this product, we allow for changes. So if the schema changes, if the platform version changes, format changes, or need to add a field, or the API changes, we monitor those changes, which they call data drifts. And this way the application doesn't break. we monitor and we see that something has changed, we automatically build the flow, the pipe again, so that there is a constant movement and there's no breakage in this particular movement of the data. And again, this is perfect for keeping things in sync with your cloud applications. So why Software AG in an integration platform? Well, like I mentioned earlier, we have the broadest sets of database connections. Again, 150 plus connections, allowing you to communicate with the mainframe, as well as other platforms where your legacy data resides. There's one single platform and design, so I can build the pipeline, and you can do either CDC changes, or we can even handle batch changes. It's all done in the same and designed in the same platform for that process. And again, it's a very adaptable pipeline. It delivers data continuously. It allows for messages to be sent to operators and just to allow any indication of things that are happening within the system. And again, it is a continuous data flow. So with that, if you want us to help you liberate your data to the cloud, please contact Software AG, and then we'll be happy to do presentations for you for further discussions with this solution. And with that said, I would like to turn this over now to Robert Latham, who's going to talk about the power of Snowflake and the partnership Snowflake has with Software AG. Robert, I turn this over to you.
Thank you, Eric. Perfect segue. Appreciate that. I am the SE manager for our state and local engineering team. It's a joy to be able to talk with you all this afternoon. So what is Snowflake, and how can this platform work in the ecosystem that Eric just described and that we'll be describing in a few minutes? In short, there's essentially 3 layers to the Snowflake architecture. And keep in mind, the Snowflake architecture is provided as a service. It is a modern, built for the cloud platform. It is elastic. It is designed to take advantage of all of the benefits and the capabilities that modern cloud platforms provide today. And so how do we do that? That is done through essentially this 3-layer architecture. It is using storage separate from the computing environments. This is a key aspect to the architecture, because as with some of the legacy architectures that Eric just described, they're bound, and there's disadvantages and bottlenecks with the storage and compute alignment and architectures. The Snowflake architectures is totally separate, 3 independent tiers. The 3rd tier is the intelligent infrastructure that really ties all of this together. So if we are to look at this in a little more detail, starting again with that storage component, we are using AWS's standard S3 storage. It is elastic. The benefit of using this is we manage it for you. We highly compress and encrypt all of the data that's coming in from stream sets or other data sources and feeders to the platform. It's scalable, so you don't have to worry about allocating more storage and more capacity and all of the things that you typically have to do with traditional environments. And it can accept literally any type of data, whether that's structured data, semi-structured, or unstructured data. We can really bring all of those silos of data all together in one place for being able to utilize moving forward. The second piece of the puzzle is the elastic performance engine. And this is, again, utilizing Amazon's standard EC2 compute But what we do here and what makes this unique is we overlay this with the intelligence layer so that we're able to segregate each workload. So as you're doing ETL and load jobs from stream sets, or you're doing BI and visualization with another tool set, or you're doing data science and machine learning with yet another, each of those different workloads can be configured accordingly to be able to scale not only up but out, to be able to optimize those types of workloads, because each one of those workloads do work differently. It's not a one size fits all. The best part of all of this is when you're not using these compute resources, this can be turned off and you don't pay for any resources. So you only pay for what you use. It scales to the size that you need it and then turns off when it's done. The last piece of it is the intelligent infrastructure. And again, this is really where it manages and maintains this whole architecture. It does all of the metadata management, administration, optimization and tuning, the governance and security aspects of the system. So really, all of the service is managed for you with this infrastructure and maintains this. Again, this is provided as a service. So we do all of this work. You as a customer really are only responsible for loading data and setting up the security infrastructure and rules. And then you're off to the races. So how does this all come together? Essentially, at the foundation of this whole architecture, Snowflake is really able to store this data as a data lake, maybe in the more traditional raw data silo, the source system that it came from, or it can be utilized in a more traditional, more structured data warehouse. Something new that we have coming out later this year, we call Unistore. It is even going to add additional capabilities for transactional workloads. So this foundation then powers all of the many different workloads from data engineering, data pipeline, working with things like stream sets to be able to do bulk loading, batch loading, streaming of data, to then load and power the other workloads, things like doing the machine learning, data science, business intelligence, as well as something like an application layer. We can incorporate that and use that within the Snowflake architecture. And lastly, collaborate, be able to do data sharing. And we'll talk a little bit more about that, but being able to share and collaborate on this information. But none of this would be any good if we did not have a very robust and structured governance model underlying all of this. So we offer a variety of features and capabilities to not only understand your data, but classify it and tag it, to be able to identify where we have PII, where we have sensitive information, so that we can then create security policies and procedures to protect that information and do things like row and column level access policies. We can enable conditional masking and dynamic masking of data like social security numbers and other PII types of fields. Maybe it's even an anonymization of that data to again be able to protect it. And all of this is wrapped and integrated with a role-based access control layer that helps manage it. So in short, no agency, no entity, no user is able to see something that they shouldn't see. They only see that data at the level of data that they should see at the right time, so that we can then interconnect that with the rest of the ecosystem and be able to utilize it to do things like data sharing and other activities. To go a little bit deeper into that collaboration, the data sharing capabilities, there's really 3 different ways that we do that within Snowflake. The first way is what we call a direct share. So I'm able to physically share a piece of data very securely at a very granular level with another entity or another agency or another vendor or partner. This alleviates the old way of doing data shares, secure FTPs and sneaker nets and all of the other ways that we've done it over the years are obsolete with this type of interaction. We're not moving data. We maintain control of that data at all times. Should you want to revoke that access, it's immediate. So never at any point in time does the owner of this information ever lack that control. They maintain full access. They even know exactly how that data is being used, by when, and by whom. All of that is collected in the metadata. The second option is more of a private data exchange. Think of it as a internal catalog of information and data sets that provide some metadata and information about how data can be shared and used and what's available within that data set, so that it's very easy to share, again, with authorized users, those agencies, those providers or vendors that you work with and are trusted. The last part of this is the public Snowflake data marketplace. And this really opens up the world of more than 390 data providers and 1,800 data sources that are live as of this last January, and really provides access to public information that's free to use. Some of it does require fees, but it does provide you a platform in which you can seamlessly integrate third-party data of all types directly into your Snowflake environment and ecosystem to leverage your legacy data, enrich that data to enhance all of the outputs and capabilities that it has to offer. Another feature and capability I like to highlight is something we call Snowpark. This was released about a year ago. This was probably the most asked for capability and functionality from our customer base. And really what it provides is a framework for developers, data engineers, and data scientists to be able to develop and code in the language of their choice: Scala, Python, Java. But the thing that makes this very unique and powerful is the ability to then deploy that code base within the Snowflake engine and actually utilize and exploit the elastic framework that Snowflake offers with the compute infrastructure. So it really brings the best of both worlds and wraps them together. And then taking that a step further, what we're able to do is provide a GUI layer and an application layer on top of that to be able to build native apps through things like stream sets and Streamlit, so that you can incorporate very graphical, easy to use, easy to develop applications right within the Snowflake application and platform, all in one place. So in summary, I think what I want to leave you with is, why Snowflake? And that is, it is a truly modern, built for the warehouse, built for the cloud a platform that provides warehousing. It provides data lake capabilities, single place to do all of the workloads that you need without having to, again, move data from place to place and from tier to tier and platform to platform. One place to do all of it all together. What we hear from our customers and why they love this is the time to value. It's a service we maintain for you, so the time to value is very quick and very straightforward, very easy to get going. Near zero administration. We make it very easy to use and get started. The elasticity, and most of all, it just works. So with that, love to pass it over to Will and let him talk about how we work together from the platform perspective.
Yeah, thank you, Robert, and thank you, Eric, for your contributions, and Caresoft for putting this thing together for us. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Will Geiger. I'm a senior partner account manager with AWS supporting public sector partners, specifically public sector ISV partners, such as Software AG and Snowflake. I want to just add to what you've heard today from Eric and Robert by illustrating kind of the backdrop of these solutions being powered by AWS and by sharing at a high level why customers and partners like Software AG and Snowflake choose AWS. So I'll start at the highest level. I know based on the conversation so far, this is probably a review for many or most of you. But cloud computing, what is cloud computing? It is the on-demand delivery of IT resources over the internet with pay-as-you-go pricing. So instead of buying and owning and maintaining physical data centers and servers, you can access that technology on an as-needed basis. And with AWS, cloud computing, AWS manages and maintains that technology. And it's in a secure environment, and businesses access these resources via the internet to develop and run their applications. And just as a little bit of history as to how AWS came to be, from Amazon.com, after over a decade or so of building and running the highly scalable web app, Amazon.com, the company realized that it had this core competency in operating at a massive scale, and embarked on the broader mission of serving this new customer segment of developers and businesses, and allowing them or enabling them to build web services that they can use to serve their customers downstream. So why do customers choose AWS? A variety of reasons. Customers are choosing AWS because it delivers benefits through increased agility, vast array of services. I think there's over 200 services in our portfolio today. Our cost-saving methodology, and a focus on customer growth and innovation. All these benefits are made available to customers on a global scale, so companies with an international footprint can benefit from AWS services as well and serve their customers internationally. I want to focus on kind of the top four. We see customer conversations starting at cost savings. We allow customers to trade that capital expense for variable expense and only pay for IT as they consume it. Excuse me. And that variable expense is much lower than what customers can do for themselves because of AWS's economies of scale. Just as kind of evidence of that economies of scale, as of September 14th, excuse me, September 14th, 2022, AWS has reduced prices 129 times since AWS launched in 2006. So we expect to continue lowering prices this year and for years to come. It's kind of at the core of our pricing philosophy to kind of, to work relentlessly to take costs out of our own cost structure and pass those cost savings back to AWS customers in the form of lower prices. So that's where we start. We start at cost savings, but there are, other compelling benefits. These three: faster innovation, elasticity, business agility, are also very prominent in our conversations with customers. With respect to faster innovation, customers are able to focus their highly valuable IT resources, developing applications that differentiate their business and transform their customer experiences instead of, managing and maintaining infrastructure and their own data centers. Elasticity, customers used to over provision to ensure they had enough capacity to handle, business operations at the peak levels of activity. With AWS, you can provision, any amount, but the amount of resources that you actually need, and you know that you can scale up or down along with the needs of your business. And that kind of ties in with the agility. AWS lets customers spin up resources very quickly. You can deploy hundreds or even thousands of servers in minutes, and this means that customers can can quickly develop and roll out new applications. You heard Robert talk about the speed to value, and it means that they can experiment and innovate more quickly. And if experiment fails, you can always just deprovision those resources without any risk. This may be a familiar image to many of you, the Gartner Magic Quadrant. Gartner is an independent, third-party research firm that provides yearly reports, which evaluate different markets, different, solutions leaders. According to Gartner, AWS is a leader for cloud infrastructure and platform services. That's the completeness of vision and ability to execute is essentially a blend of technical capability and customer success demonstrated over time. This is the 12th consecutive year that AWS has been named a leader in the cloud industry. So I want to talk a little bit about the global infrastructure with AWS. So AWS has the most extensive global cloud infrastructure of all cloud providers. No other provider offers as many regions with multiple availability zones connected by low latency, high throughput, and highly redundant networking. AWS spans 99 availability zones within 31 geographic regions around the world. And we have announced plans for 12 more availability zones across four more regions. Those regions are Canada, Israel, New Zealand, and Thailand. And over time, we'll be in most of the large developed geographies with regions. And another kind of reference to Gartner, the AWS region and availability zone model has been recognized by Gartner as the recommended approach for running enterprise applications that require high availability. So just to mention security, at AWS, we consider security job zero. Customers and partners rely on AWS infrastructure to meet their needs from a security and compliance perspective. And today, AWS protects millions of active customers around the world. Our customers represent diverse industries with a wide range of use cases, including large enterprises, startups, educational institutions, government organizations. The scale and global reach of these customers gives us a kind of broad visibility and deep perspective on cloud security, and we reinvest that knowledge back into our services so customers all around the world can benefit. AWS and its supply chain has been vetted and accepted as sufficient for top secret workloads, and when we're the only commercial cloud provider that has achieved that level. A bit of a busy slide. This kind of demonstrates AWS supporting more security standards and compliance certifications than any other offering. This includes PCI DSS, HIPAA, HITECH, FedRAMP, SEC Rule 17A4, FISMA. So this all helps satisfy compliance requirements for virtually every regulatory agency around the globe. And so just with respect to public sector, I want to kind of help define what AWS sees as public sector. Primarily, we're talking government, education, nonprofit, and healthcare. More than 7,500 government agencies at the local, state, and federal levels are using AWS today. If you look at education, this includes higher education institutions like colleges and universities. It also includes public school districts, private schools, and it also includes educational technology companies that have education, end customers, essentially. We look at nonprofit. We have tens of thousands of nonprofits and non-governmental organizations worldwide are using AWS to increase their impact and to advance their mission goals. And with respect to healthcare, public sector healthcare organizations use AWS to analyze their data and improve patient care in the communities that they serve. From personalizing the patient experience to supporting veterans and accessing their healthcare, AWS is helping to kind of modernize governmental healthcare. So that's kind of, in a nutshell, the kind of business value of AWS and why partners like Software AG and Snowflake have chosen AWS to be a strategic partner of theirs and to build their solutions. Software AG and Snowflake are both longtime partners of AWS, and they leverage AWS services to kind of create the backbone of the solutions that you've heard them describe and illustrate today. So I want to just take a moment to share with you kind of like the level of engagement that each of these partners has with AWS to hopefully convey the sincerity and level of investment that we as organizations put into providing the best experience possible for customers, in particular our public sector customers. So this is basically just a snapshot of the Snowflake partner profile. Snowflake has been a partner since 2014 and has earned 3 APN competencies. The AWS competencies, the APN competencies are the stamps of validation that say that they are experts in a particular industry vertical and a particular solution set. So they've earned 3 competencies. They have their solutions listed in AWS Marketplace, which some of you may be familiar with. I encourage you to learn more if you're not. It makes procurement, billing, and reporting very simple and easy to access for you as the customer, as well as for them to interact with between AWS and themselves as a partner. They work daily with their AWS counterparts. I think I saw some of their account team in the attendee list here. So they work together at the highest levels, and the highest levels of their leadership are committed and invested in the time and resources to make the AWS relationship work. So thank you, Snowflake, for being a great partner of AWS. Likewise with Software AG, a partner since 2007, Software AG offers the first end-to-end digital business platform based on open standards. So this modular platform allows users to develop the next generation of application systems to build their digital future today. With over 45 years of doing business, Software AG is one of the leaders in kind of that digital business experience. They also have their listings in Marketplace, APN competencies, and work together with AWS on a daily basis from a technical product, marketing, and sales perspective to provide that highest level of value to the public sector. So I will pass this back over to Ryan. Thank you all for your time and attention today. Thank you very much.
Thank you for that, Will. That now will bring us to our Q&A portion of the webinar. So if you have any questions among our participants here, please put them in the Q&A pod down below, and we will do our best to answer them live. We'll give you a minute or two to enter your questions now. We do already have a couple of questions that have trickled in already. So our first question here that we have is for Eric. So Eric, is there software that needs to run on the mainframe here with Software AG?
So Ryan, to answer that question, there is a small footprint that runs on the mainframe, and that's just for connection to those to the data repository there. And it's an IP connection that allows us to connect and to pass the data through to the cloud platform.
Awesome. All right, thank you for that. The next question that we have here is for Robert. Now, Robert, can Snowflake be utilized for smaller projects, or is it intended for only large projects and engagements?
Very good question. Essentially, it can really be used because of the elastic nature of not only the storage and compute layers that Amazon provides and that we manage. It can be used for any size project. It's great for those projects that are just getting started because you don't know how much data or how much compute you're going to need, like a traditional sizing. You only pay for what you use. So if you use little to none, again, the cost will be according to that. If on the other side of the equation, you have a very large deployment, petabytes of data, we can scale to those sizes as well. We have customers using massive, hundreds of petabytes of data a day. So really anything in between is fair game.
Gotcha. Thank you. The next question we have here is for Will. Now, Will, why is it that partners and customers trust Amazon Web Services here for their database services? So you can speak to that a little bit more.
Sure. Yeah, sure thing. So with AWS, databases, AWS has over 15 database options. So you heard Eric talked about Software AG being, having the broadest set of, data connectors. Well, kind of mirroring that, AWS's 15 database options. That's kind of the most complete family of, purpose-built databases to give customers, the right tool for the right job. So you can spend, less money, be more productive, and be able to change customer experiences with that right tool.
Gotcha. Fantastic. Now, circling back to Eric, we have another question here for you. Does the mainframe data collector get data in real time, or is it more on a scheduled basis?
It could be both. You can set it up for the data to come through either through CDC or through batch, and then you can schedule that time. You can have it every minute, or you can set it so that it'll happen at 5 o'clock in the afternoon for those changes to take place. So it all depends on your preference. But so we give you those options for that data, how you want the data transferred.
Gotcha. That sounds fantastic. Now, Robert, we have another question here for you, which is, how do we get started using Snowflake? Can you give us the early steps here to get started?
Robert, you're on mute.
So sorry. We have a couple different ways of getting started. The first way is essentially a free trial. We offer 30-day free trials. You can go right online, sign up. It's the full product, so you really get a chance to see how everything works. And then we do offer an on-demand option where you can literally just put in a credit card, or if you'd like to get something a little more explicit and custom, we're more than glad to work with you individually to do sizings and come up with a budgetary estimate for what your project would look like.
Gotcha. And now, Will, we have another question in here for you. What are some of the emerging technologies that Amazon Web Services here is focused on?
Yeah, there's a lot, AI, ML, IoT. I think one of the ones that that's most pertinent for this audience and in the context is, data lakes and analytics. Over the years, customers have accumulated a lot of data that lives in a number of different systems. And so most customers pull that data together in a data lake, most of the time using S3. Just given the functionality, availability, durability. And so AWS provides, those purpose-built analytic services to support their those data lakes for a wide range of use cases, and partners like Software AG and Snowflake who leverage these services to build powerful tools to help drive insights for your businesses.
Gotcha. And now we have a couple of questions in here from the Q&A portion here. So the first question here is from Brian Lee. Brian asks, do you provide architecture reference models for digital citizen initiatives? I'll leave that to the group here if anybody wants to jump in on that first.
So at least from the Snowflake perspective, I don't think we have a specific one. I think I need to know a little bit more about what you're thinking with digital services or digital citizens. Is it a specific service or aspect of that? Because there could be quite a few. We do offer a variety of different reference models. I know the partners here do as well. So, I mean, I think that's something we could talk more about, but we'd probably need a little more detail.
Of course. I have another question here from Brian as well, unless Eric, it looked like you might have had something to touch on that, or did I missee that? Oh, I saw you raising your hand. I apologize.
Oh, no. Oh, I wrote, oh.
The other question that I have in here also from Brian is, do you provide marketing support to government employees who want to sell their executives on this approach? I didn't see who that was specifically for, but if anybody has anything they want to touch on with that.
Brian, from the AWS perspective, I know that we have dedicated account teams to support every facet of kind of the government industry. So we have a team who would be more than happy to engage you on helping support you and building a business case to bring AWS and the likes of Snowflake and Software AG to bear for your constituents. So yeah, the answer is yes, most definitely.
And for the Software AG side, we definitely have our own support team that will help aid in any way possible that we can to give you a plan for your executives.
And from the Snowflake side, we also offer a variety of government specific use cases and scenarios, and glad to provide even more content as needed.
Gotcha. And then the last question that I see in here is for Eric. And Eric, does Software AG also offer a trial for their services, or is there some sort of trial?
Absolutely, we do. Again, if you go to softwareag.com, their website, you can request a trial for whatever product you want.
Fantastic. Now, I believe that's the last question we have, so thank you all for answering these questions here. With that, that wraps up our event. So I wanted to say a quick thank you to the Software AG team with Eric here, as well as to Robert from Snowflake and Will Geiger here from AWS for your insights today. Thank you very much for joining us and speaking. I'd like to thank all of our participants for joining us, and we hope this information was helpful to you and to your organization.